Hey everyone, this is Riddle Hakoreja Raven. I'm here with my recap and review of Raised by Wolves season number 2, episode number 5, which is titled King. And this was another enjoyable episode with some intense moments. And yeah, with only 3 more episodes left, if I'm not wrong, because this season is going to be like, 8 episodes long. So with only 3 more episodes left, I am looking forward to seeing where this show is going to end. And hopefully, it will return for the season number 3 because I'm not the biggest sci fi fan out there. But Raised by Wolves is a type of sci fi show that I actually enjoy watching. So the episode opened up with Mother basically talking to Sue about how to figure out a way to help Paul because he's encased in the scaly cocoon, and in like 48 hours or 24 hours, his entire body will be dissolved inside the cocoon or whatnot. And Sue is like, you know what, he is going to turn into a snake because Mother was like, oh, this isn't him dying, this is him basically evolving. And Sue was like, you aren't going to talk about Paul like this. He is going to die, and I don't want my child to become a snake. And yeah, Sue realized, not Sue, my bad. Mother realizes that she misspoke, and Mother is like, don't worry, please forgive me for what I said. I misspoke and all of that stuff. You are my friend and I value your judgment. So yeah, Mother and Sue are basically trying to figure out how to help Paul because they are running out of time. Then we cut to Marcus and his people, and he is driving the tank with Decima. And after what happened in the previous episode, Decima can feel that Marcus isn't necessarily emanating the energy that he used to, especially after Mother took back her eyes from him. And Decima is kind of growing suspicious of Marcus, and she's like, "Why are you retreating? Because we know that the seeds are in the tarantula. Shouldn't we go and attack?" And Marcus is like, "No, we don't have enough power to attack the tarantula." And she's like, considering you're the prophet, shouldn't Saul have given you enough power to go ahead with such an attack? And yeah, Marcus doesn't like her tone and whatnot. He stops the tank and he walks out, and Decima goes after him. And she's like, "I thought you were the prophet. Why are we doing this?" And Marcus is like, "No, I'm still the prophet. I'm still the prophet." And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then these two talk about how Decima ended up killing Veril, and because she's like, "I killed Veril for you, okay? I killed my own daughter." And Marcus is like, "Nah, you can't say that because you can't necessarily kill something that wasn't even alive. What you killed was a thing, an object, an android. You didn't kill anything." And while those two are talking, we see Holly talking to this woman, and this woman is like, "Child, you are wearing an artifact around your neck, and these artifacts are very important. You shouldn't be wearing it and whatnot." So, if you guys remember, in the previous season, Holly ended up finding a tooth from Romulus, and yeah, Holly is like, I found it. So Saul, I found it because Saul wanted me to find it and whatnot. It's mine, and whatnot. And yeah, Marcus decides to talk to Holly, and he's like, huh, so Romulus was a king, right? And Holly is like, yep. And Romulus decides to take the tooth necklace from Holly, and he ends up wearing it because he thinks of himself as a prophet, as the king. And Decima is like, Marcus, those things don't necessarily have any meaning. It's all fake. And yeah, Marcus ignores her, and Holly also tells Marcus that she can feel power coming from the tooth, and we do see that power kind of come into play later on in the episode. So one of the guys from Marcus's group, he ends up calling Marcus, and he's like, look at that." And Marcus looks, and it's one of those weird hexagonal shaped temples that we saw in the previous season. And Marcus is like, yep, let's go to that temple. So Mother is trying to find Holly, and she goes to Marcus's camp, his previous base site, and she ends up finding a message from Holly, which she takes back to the encampment in order to in order to have Father listen to it too. And talking about Father, he's in the shed because in the previous episode, he ended up encountering the android that he helped heal or repair, and that android, I guess, is able to create these solar bursts or whatnot. So he's trying to connect with the android, and the android isn't necessarily talking back to him. And yeah, Father even ends up telling it a joke and whatnot. And it turns out, from what I can understand, that the cowl that the android is wearing, it's basically part of the android's design. It's not something that can be taken off. And yeah, Father inches closer, and he's like, "Can I take it off? Can I see your face and whatnot?" But before we can get to it, mother calls out, and father is like, "Stay here, don't move, don't do anything. I'll be back." So yeah, this is where these two end up listening to Holly's message. This is basically telling mother and father that they are her kidnappers, and she has found a new family, and she doesn't want both of them to come looking for her and whatnot, and that she hopes that the rest of her siblings will someday join her family. And yeah, mother is like, we have to get Holly back. And she also ends up having some choice words for father, because she's like, okay, so are you someone who is still interested in helping reignite humanity? Or are you someone who is going to be a rogue android picking up fights and whatnot? So you can't choose both, father. You have to select one purpose in your life. And father is like, you know what, mother? I have a feeling that we're becoming way too human in order to properly take care of our children. And mother is like, nonsense, father. That's not happening. And before she walks out, she's like, father, I need you to go and find Holly, and it will help if you take someone capable with you who isn't very distracted, because it could be dangerous. So we cut to Campion and his siblings, and they're in the hospital. Sue is there as well, and they're basically hoping for Paul to recover and whatnot. And Campion is like, yeah, Saul will help him, and yada yada yada. And Sue ends up talking to Tempest about how she's feeling, because she is getting close to giving birth. And Tempest is like, yeah, I am a bit worried, because the people who were going to take the baby from me and who were going to help raise the baby, they ended up running away when mother took over. So I'm not necessarily sure what I'm going to do now. And then Tempest and Hunter are just walking around, and they're talking about how, yeah, Tempest talks to Hunter about how she misses believing in something bigger, believing in a power that can help make everything okay. And Hunter is like, yeah, I guess I can kind of understand where you're coming from. And then these two end up going to into father's shed, and yeah, they see the weird android that's inside the shed. And yeah, both of them are a bit confused. They're like, okay, so father ended up repairing this android. Is it functional? Is it even moving? Or has father just been pretending that it's alive and having conversations with it? And Hunter is like, you know what, Tempest, I'm getting creeped out, so I'm going to go. And while I was watching this scene, I really thought that the android was going to attack them or something, or something. But yeah, Tempest decides to walk closer to the android, and yeah, this is where we get to see an ultrasound of Tempest's baby. And yeah, we can hear the heartbeat, and Tempest feels something inside her stomach, and she's like, yep, I'm creeped out. I need to go. I need to go. So we cut to mother basically torturing this guy. I think his name is Cleaver, and she's like, Cleaver, did you know that the trust was going to use Paul in order to attack Marcus and his people? And yeah, Cleaver is like, yeah, I knew, and the trust was okay with using Paul as a sacrifice, because the needs of a few don't outweigh the needs of the many and whatnot. And yeah, mother is like, you know what, I can help you. I can stop torturing you if you tell me where the antidote is. And Cleaver is like, no, I don't know where the antidote is. There is no antidote. And then she ends up talking about how Cleaver never told her about whose eyes he has. And we get to see a very weird scene where Cleaver is clearly confused. At first he says that the eyes belong to his brother, and then he was like, no, 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 these eyes belong to my father. And yeah, mother is like, okay, Cleaver, so what it is? What is it? Why are you confused? And then we get a scene where she's like, well, you were reprogrammed. And Cleaver is like, no, I'm not an android. How the heck can I be reprogrammed? And she's like, yep, humans can be reprogrammed with conditioning and repetition and whatnot. And from what I can understand, it's basically that the trust ended up reprogramming Cleaver, because the original Cleaver, how he used to be, that Cleaver wasn't necessarily interested in helping the trust. And she's like, yep, you got reprogrammed. Your old code ended up getting rewritten, and these eyes belong to you, Cleaver. You have been taught to think incorrectly about it. And then we cut to Sue, and Sue is trying to figure out how to help Paul. And the holosphere is like, well, you can't necessarily help him right now. The best you can do is make his passing more comfortable. And Sue is like, no, no, that's not happening. That's not happening. And then she ends up noticing the rosary that Vida left behind. And yeah, this was a very interesting scene, because Sue realizes that there's no Saul out there, and apparently the voices that Marcus and Paul are hearing, it's that particular voice is being transmitted from some aliens from somewhere. And Sue realizes that, but she's like, you know what, if you have the power to help my child, then I beg of you, I want you to help me, and in return I'll do anything for you. And I'm like, oh, Sue, don't say that, don't say that. So we cut to father, and he ends up going to meet with Lucas, one of Marcus's previous people. And yeah, this is where Lucas and father end up coming to an agreement. And father is like, "You're going to help me get my child back, Holly," and in return, he agrees to. Allow Lucas to do whatever he wants to do with Marcus and his old people, because Lucas wants to punish them as a matriarch, as the last standing matriarch and whatnot. So we cut to the temple that Marcus and his people found, and it's kind of, I'm not really sure if it's kind of broken or what. I don't think it's broken, right? But it looked broken. But then again, it could be just a seating area or a praying area for other people. But anyway, there's this very very deep hole near the temple, and Lucas ends up inserting his arm into one of the holes of the temple, and there's this weird contraption that lowers down. It has a seat, and yeah, they end up realizing that there's some sort of trial that he needs to go through, and this trial is connected to the tree of knowledge somehow. And Decima is like, "Well, you're the prophet, you need to go." And Marcus ends up sitting inside that weird contraption. There's a seat there, and everyone prays for him to be okay as the contraption is lowered into the hole or the tunnel. And then we cut to Sue, and she is apparently sleeping, and she wakes up and she notices this leech on the other side of the glass, and she's like, this is not happening. And she picks up the leech, she puts it in a glass container, but the leech isn't there, and the leech appears in her face. She takes off her biohazard suit or whatever she's wearing, and it's basically she ends up getting a vision about how to help Paul, because she's very worried that she's hallucinating, and she's talking to the holosphere, and she's like, "You know what, I was in a war, and there was never a moment that I ever hallucinated, even if I wanted to escape from my reality and whatnot." And the hologram is like, "Well, it might help if you tell me what you hallucinated about." And she tells him about the leech that are a few inches long with tiny tiny teeth. And the hologram is like, "You know what, this leech is basically a variant 6 that's present on this planet, and it feeds on those acidic aquatic creatures, and it has medicinal properties." And Sue is like, "Oh, tell me more. How can I get these leeches?" And he's like, "Well, you'll have to procure them yourself." And she's like, "You know what? I'll do that. I'll do just that." And then she ends up going with Campion in order to lure one of the fish people out. And yeah, Campion is like, let's do this. It might help Paul." And while they're waiting for one of the creatures to come out, this is where Sue asks Campion about how he feels about the snake. And Campion is like, "Well, I used to be scared of their bones when I was young, but after I have looked at the eyes of this snake, it's just a kid, so I'm not scared anymore." So yeah, one of the creatures comes out, and this is where Campion ends up throwing a little container, and the container bursts, and there's gas emitted, and yeah, it knocks the creature out. And Sue runs towards the creature after telling Campion to stay behind, and she starts like pulling these leeches off the creature, and she ends up storing them in a canister. And as she's working on the creature wakes up, and yeah, I really like this scene where the creature is looking at Sue, and Sue just screams and yells at the creature's face, and it serves as a distraction long enough for Campion to throw a rock at the creature's head, and the creature's like, "No, I don't think I can fight these two, so I'll just run away." So Sue and Campion hurry to the medical bay, and they end up using the leeches on the cocoon that Paul is inside of. And Sue is like, "You know what, let's pray that this helps." So we cut to Marcus, and yeah, the contraption that he's sitting inside, it stops, and we get to see this entire skeleton of one of the giant snakes that are present in this planet. And okay, so basically, again, I have no idea about all of the mysteries that are occurring in this show, but I am intrigued. It kind of feels like the timeline is in some sort of a loop. Like all of this has already happened, and it's kind of happening again, but the cast is changed. Like the characters, Marcus, Sue, and everyone else, like the characters have changed, but all of this has happened before. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. So Marcus gets off the chair, and he ends up noticing a tunnel on the side, and he enters the tunnel. And while that's happening, everyone on the surface are praying for Marcus's safe return and whatnot. And while they're praying, Decima notices something run past the group. And at first, I was like, okay, so are Lucas and Father here? But no, it turns out that it's Varel. And then we get a very intense scene where Varel is basically on a rampage, and she starts killing everyone. And I'm like, yes. And also, really, Decima really thought that Varel had died after she jumped off that cliff in the previous episode. Really, like Varel is an android. You'll need to probably take out all of her wiring in order to keep her down permanently. But yeah, Varel is killing everyone. And at first, I was like, okay, so is she going to kill Holly, or is she going to try and kill Holly? And Holly will be like, I'm Campion's sister and whatnot, and then Varel will forgive her or something. But now it turns out that Varel didn't necessarily go after Holly, and Holly's just hiding. But Varel decides to kill everyone. And then we cut to Marcus, and he goes through the tunnel, and he ends up seeing that the tunnel is blocked by these human skeletons, I guess. And he knocks some of them away, and he enters the room, and basically there's this weird alien thing lying in there. And yeah, Marcus comes closer, and it moves, and of course Marcus is afraid. He's scared a bit. And then because of the Romulus suit that he is wearing around his neck, it starts to emit some sort of weird energy, and all of that energy goes into this alien thing. And this alien thing then ends up transforming into the creatures that we saw in the previous season. And yeah, Marcus like, nah, this isn't happening, and he ends up shooting the creature right in the face. And also, I forgot, while Marcus was trying to figure out what the heck this thing is, he ends up finding an artifact, one of the metallic guards, and he takes it. So yeah, Marcus ends up killing the creature, and the Romulus suit, I guess, he also throws the Romulus suit away. So I guess that won't be showing up anytime sooner. So Holly, while Varel is killing everyone, Holly decides to bring the contraption back up in order for Marcus to come back up as well. And as the contraption is being pulled up, Marcus ends up jumping, and he ends up climbing into the contraption. He's safe now, and as he's going up, he looks at the rectangular relic that he got from the creature inside the tunnel, and he's just happy that his mission is complete. So yeah, Decima decides to run, and she ends up going into the tank. And this was a very, very interesting it was kind of a bit scary, because Varel doesn't necessarily have a face right now. We can see her internal structure, and yeah, she is inside the tank with Decima, and Decima is like, "You have to forgive me, Varel. You have to forgive me. I'm your mom, and you know that mom make mistakes, right? And we can start over. And I know that you love it when we start afresh and whatnot." And Varel's like, "Yes, mom, let's do that. I need to start fresh. I need to teach you something. I need you to learn something." And Decima's like, "What is it?" And yeah, Veridel's like, "Well, I want to teach you how it feels to be me." And she ends up using the same scalpel that Decima used in the previous episode in order to kill Decima and rip her face off. And again, am I okay with Decima dying? Yeah, I am. However, I was hoping for more answers, because we know that Decima did something to her own daughter. She broke her neck. Now, whether it was on purpose or it was an accident, we don't know. And I really thought that this episode was going to give us an explanation about it, but it didn't. So Veril ends up dragging Decima's body back to the temple, and she hangs the body up, and then she walks away. And I was like, okay, so she's not going to wait around in order to kill Marcus and Holly, because while Veril was killing everyone else, she was talking about how all of them took her mother away from her. And I'm like, you know what, Marcus is to blame, so why not just stick around and kill Marcus as well? But I guess plot convenience. So we cut to Father and Lucas, and they're making their way towards Holly, trying to find her. And this is where Lucas is like, okay, so if Mother is the queen of the encampment, does that make you king? And yeah, this is kind of the second time the word king has shown up. We had the king thing with the Romulus tooth, and now Lucas ends up asking Father if he's king or not. And yeah, Father is like, these terms, they have no meaning. And no, we are stewards, and once Campion is grown up, then he will be the one who will the leader of the encampment. And Lucas is like, okay, so is that your plan or Mother's? And yeah, father is like, oh, it was Mother's plan, and I think that she's right about it. And then Lucas ends up noticing the temple on the radar, and he's like, you know what, Marcus will never ever ignore this temple, so let's head there. So Holly is just scared and she is waiting for Marcus to come up, and Marcus does come up. He notices the Decima's dead body, and everyone is basically dead. And yeah, Lucas and Marcus, not Lucas, my bad. Holly and Marcus end up hugging each other. So it turns out that the leeches did work, and Paul is okay now. And Paul is like, okay, so I'm all right. How were you able to figure out how to help me and whatnot? Did the omnibiotics work? And Sue was like, no, not necessarily. Campion helped me, and Paul is like, how? And yeah, Sue was like, I'll tell you in a bit. And this is also where Paul tells Sue that while he was inside the cocoon, he couldn't necessarily feel anything. It was as if he was in some sort of hyper sleep. So we cut to Tempest, and yeah, the baby is moving inside her body, and Mother notices it, and Mother's like, you know what, it's livelier than before, but don't worry, it's not in stress. It's not under any stress. And I think this kind of connects to what the android and father shed there, but let's see. So while Holly and Marcus, I think they're burning the bodies of the people who died. While they're doing that, Lucas jumps in and Lucas is ready to kill Marcus. And I'm like, just shoot him, Lucas, just shoot him. But no, Holly comes in between Marcus and Lucas, and then Father arrives. And yeah, Lucas is like, Father, we had an agreement, move aside. I need to shoot Marcus. And Father is like, no, not in front of a child. We'll take him back to camp and then we'll decide what to do with him. And I'm like, no, Father, no, that's a mistake, because you know that Marcus is going to do something to mess stuff up. So we cut to Sue and Paul, and they're having a conversation. They're bonding. And this is where Sue ends up telling Paul that, you know what, I ended up knowing about how the leeches could be of help because something talked to me. And Paul is like, okay, you did something really talk to you, or are you saying that in order because I was close to dying? And she's like, no, something talked to me. Now I'm not really sure. Now I know that it's not Saul, because there is this alien transmission who has been talking to you and Marcus. So whatever it is, something did talk to me, and I do believe in it now. And Paul is like, you know what, mom, not mom necessarily. He's like, you know what is the difference between, what is actually the difference between an alien and a god, huh? What's the difference? And I think that Paul is just happy that his adoptive mother has started to believe in something, and this is where they can work on mending the relationship. However, I'm a bit cautious, because whatever it is that's talking to Sue, it has its own motives, and yeah, it's probably going to force Sue to do something. Again, only 3 more episodes left. Let's see what happens. So Paul has gone to sleep, and the holosphere tells Sue to go to sleep as well. And she's like, I will go to sleep. But before she does that, she ends up listening to the alien voice again. And I'm like, yup, that's what I was concerned about. And the alien voice is like, you need to grow the seeds, and whatnot in order to create the tree of life. And Sue was like, yep, I'll do everything you ask of me. I just want you to keep Paul safe. And this is where the episode ends, and I'm like, Sue, why would you do that? Why? But yeah, let me know what you thought of the episode. It was quite intense. I really liked how Varel ended up killing everyone in different ways. The fact that she didn't wait around in order to kill Marcus. But then again, Viral is still out there, right? And she has a tracking system. Maybe she'll go and try to reconnect with Campion. Who knows? Or maybe she'll just follow Marcus in order to track him down and kill him when the opportunity strikes. But anyway, I am looking forward to the next episode. Let me know what you thought of episode number 5, Raised by Wolves, season number 2. And yeah, until next time, stay happy, stay safe, stay blessed. See you guys later. Bye.